Okay, welcome to a deep dive, another deep dive. This one for 1423 Hicks Circle in Conyers, Georgia. We're going to walk through the financials for this one and at least demonstrate that I think this is a great deal. So let's dive right into it. First, if you've seen these before, you know that the layout for my financials is all for the purpose of helping me determine cash on cash return and monthly net cash flow. I care about other things, but I care about those things the most because they give me some idea how effective this property is going to be for me as a money producer, which is what I want for my long-term rentals. So these two boxes here, the cash on cash return and the monthly net cash flow, are going to be the results of all this calculating that we're about to do. But we're going to start at the top, and I will assert that the fair market value for this property is $120K. There's actually a house that sold in July of 2019 for $121K. Same layout, 3 bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's 1355 South Hicks Circle. And if there's time at the end of this video, I'll dive into the Zillow page for that one, and we can show exactly where that is. But just for the record, South Hicks and North Hicks actually connect. They are basically the same street. You cross the dividing line and it becomes North Hicks versus South Hicks. So it's really the same street. So 120 for an ARV is, in my opinion, very, very reasonable. I was actually imagining 120 to 125, but let's not be greedy and call it 120. For us buy and holders, the ARV isn't really so important. It's just that we want to make sure that we're getting a purchase price that's well below that. In this case, 90K is 75% of that, so there's a fair amount of spread between what we're buying it for and what it would be worth fixed up to sell. So 90,000 is your purchase price. The down payment is dramatically reduced from what it was before. We tried it at 41. We're now down to 26,000, which is just under 29% of the purchase price. Still a pretty amazing deal in my opinion, but let's walk through the rest of it and let's see if you agree with me. Repairs, so the property has residents in it, and I always pad my repair budget when I've got residents, because I know that when I do the inspection, I'm not going to really be able to see everything. Well, in this case, the inspection will happen probably while these folks are still there. The closing will happen once they're out. So I always want to pad just in case I didn't see everything while I did the inspection when they're there, when they're physically there, their stuff is there, their furniture is there. So that's what I'm budgeting this for. Realistically, I think it's more like 5 to 7 to 7,500, but I figured the extra 2,500 just in case I miss something should keep me pretty safe. It's mostly a cosmetic fix-up. The folks have been living there for a while. House is in great shape. Closing cost of $1,000 is probably overstating it too. It's probably going to be a little bit less than that, but again, I'd rather be over than under. There are 2 finance points on this deal for the financing that we're offering. This is an owner finance deal. And the balance on this one, once you've paid your 26 down, you'll owe 64 on the balance. And so 2 points on that, 2% of that is going to be $1,280. And that's what it'll be due at the time of closing. We'll talk, if there's time at the end of this video, I'll go deeper into Rentometer. But I'm showing Rentometer has this house at about 1,100. I picked 1075 because I wanted to be conservative, but we'll talk a little bit later about how I would probably do this and get potentially even more than 1,100. But 1075, I don't think anyone's going to argue with me on that one. I think that's a fair market rent, if not a little bit on the low side. Let's skip the estimated earnest money for now and move down to the debt service. The financing will cost you $297 a month, which works out to be 5.56% interest only, non-amortizing. But this is 10-year financing. You get that rate fixed for 10 years. There is no qualifying. So you could have gone through foreclosure yesterday and still qualify for this financing. Your credit is not a factor, and it is non-recourse. So if horrible things happen and you cannot continue paying this note and you have to give it up, the worst thing we can do is take the property back. We're not going to go after your personal assets. Your personal assets are off the table. The worst we can do is what we really want to do, which is get the property back. So non-recourse, non-qualifying, fixed rate, 10-year seller financing. You're never going to see anything like this anywhere else except from us and in this deal. This is extremely rare. Usually we get 3 to 5 years if we're lucky. 10 years is almost unheard of. The insurance is actually a real number. Karina got that today from a State Farm agent. It is an estimate based on the best information they had, but they did have the address, and so even if we're off by $100, that's still a pretty decent rate. That's the annual premium for a landlord policy, and we originally had $1,000, so actually it's cheaper than what we thought. So we reduced that to be in line with reality. Those taxes, 1318, that is the actual 2019 taxes. Maintenance for my model, I use 75% of 1 month's rent to calculate what the annual maintenance will be. I don't worry so much about CapEx because, again, I'm assuming that you're going to spend $10,000 up front doing all the necessary repairs. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of, you may want to budget set aside for CapEx, but you shouldn't have actually hard CapEx expenditures in that first or second or even third year if all goes well. You'll have maintenance, but you shouldn't have CapEx. But again, I for my model, I reserve 3/4 of a month of a full month's rent over the course of a year as my maintenance budget. You may decide to put something else in there, but that at least is what I pick. For vacancy, I assume 1 month out of 12 is going to be vacant. That is, I know, extremely conservative, but I'd rather be conservative than be off and have my numbers suffer. That works out to be 8.33%, and it's shown there. No, there actually. And then management, we are adjusting it to 10% now. That seems to be the norm, 10% of rents. And so that's where that comes from. So we've got, no, let's hold on a second. Why is it 1290? C9. Oh, got it. Okay. We'll edit this part out. Okay, so you have an expense load here of 39.84%, which is not unreasonable and not uncommon in Georgia, which gives us an annual gross revenue. Well, it doesn't give us an annual gross revenue. We have an annual gross revenue of $12,900. That's the 1075 times 12, minus the expenses, which are going to be the sum of these insurance, taxes, maintenance, vacancy, and management, 5139. We've got debt service, that 297 times 12, and again, these are rounded up to the nearest integer, and so that gives us an annual net income of 4202. Divvied up over the course of a year is $350 per month, which is a pretty decent cash flow. And given that we're only in it for 26 down, 10,000 repairs, 1,000 closing costs, and 1,280 in finance points, we're at a cash on cash of just a hair under 11%, which again in this market is almost unheard of. So 11% cash on cash, $350 a month positive cash flow, and we're looking at 10-year seller financing. But wait, there's definitely more. This all assumes that you would do this deal as a straight rental. I would not do this deal as a straight rental. It's a 4-side brick 3-bedroom home in Conyers. I would attempt at least to do this as a lease purchase. I would try to find someone ideally who wanted to own this thing in a year or 2 or maybe 3 and was willing to pay me non-refundable earnest money now for the right to buy this thing in, say, a year. And I would probably sell it for, I don't know, 110, probably 100. I'd probably push it as far as I could, maybe 115, possibly even 120, keeping in mind that this is going to be the future price. So it's assuming that there's no appreciation for the next 12 months. what would that price be? It'd probably be higher than 120, but it would need to be high enough to make me a nice profit, low enough that it could actually appraise. But whatever that price is, whatever you pick, and it's going to be your choice, I would want you to get at least $2,500, probably more like $3,000 in non-refundable earnest money. And just to be clear, this is not a deposit. This is not refundable. This is earnest money that will show up on a purchase and sale agreement as such when they get ready to buy. But they know, and you know, they are never, ever, ever getting this back. When they pay it up front, it is earnest money toward the purchase of the house. The worst case scenario is that they can't qualify in a year and you don't want them to stick around, in which case they've got to move out, but they're not getting this money back. But let's assume, let's not say 3,000, let's say 2,500, because I want you to see what it does to the cash on cash return. 17.51%. I don't usually use these numbers because no one believes me when I talk about why I love lease purchase, but that's just part of it. If I'm going to do this as a lease purchase, I'm probably going to try to find somebody who's gung-ho about owning this thing, and I'm going to hit max rent. So if fair market rent is $1,100, I'm going to be aiming for $1,150, possibly even $1,200. And I just want to show you what happens if I go to, say, $1,100. I get an extra, $19 of cash flow, and my cash on cash return gets even better. I would really, honestly, try to push the envelope and see if I could get $1,150. I would market it as such. If I couldn't get it, I can always drop down, but I would at least try to get $1,150. I'd market it $1,150 and see what kind of response I got. And if I didn't get what I was looking for, I'm inevitably going to get people who call and say, well, I don't have $1,150. Could you take, $1,100? And I'll go, yeah, okay, twist my arm, make me take $1,100. So I'm still going to be okay than if I just took the $1,075 that I would take as a rental. The point I'm making is you get to decide how you're going to market it, but I just want to address it here. I have never had it be the case that when I marketed a house for lease purchase, the regular rent people didn't call it as well. You get those people as well as the lease purchase people. So you don't hurt yourself in any way by marketing it as a lease purchase, because if they don't have the money, they're still going to call. The person with $500 is going to call and say, hey, I love the house. Can I have it? I've only got $500. And you're going to get to say no, but they're still going to call. They're not going to be scared off because of it. And if you don't believe me, then run a split test. Run an A campaign that just says rent and goes to a one number, and then run a separate ad that has lease purchase and $2,500 on a separate number. And you tell me if you lose out on the people who call on the sale ad, on the rent ad when you run the lease purchase ad. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never had it be the case that someone, now you could argue that I would never know if they didn't call because of the lease purchase ad, but when we do lease purchase, when we've done lease purchases in the past, people line up because they want the opportunity to own. So I don't want to turn this into a lease purchase seminar. I'll just say that if I were doing this deal, I would definitely do it as a lease purchase. Just know that it works just fine as a rental. If you really don't want to do the lease purchase and you just want to collect $1,075 or more and no earnest money, then no one's going to be upset with 11% cash on cash and $350 a month. But you could do so much better than that if you decided to make it available for lease purchase. And if you get no takers, then you can always just fall back on the straight rental. Anyway, so that is the deep dive. I'm going to cover right now in separate videos. I'm going to zoom into the rentometer page and show you what that says. And then I'm going to talk about the Zillow page as well, so you can see exactly where I'm coming from on the ARV and the fair market rent. For 1423 North Hicks Circle in Conyers, Georgia. It incorrectly shows this as a 3.1. It's actually a 3.1.5, but the square footage it has is correct, 988. I wanted just to demonstrate the ARV that it shows is 128.27. I'm calling it an ARV of 120. I think that's still conservative. This rent estimate is garbage. If you've seen my coverage of the rentometer, this is way, way, way low, but let's not even go there. The reason why I'm here is because I want to talk about the recent sales. So this is the one I was talking about earlier. Let's go there. 1355 South Hicks Circle. And again, North Hicks and South Hicks are the same road, just different names when they cross a certain point. So basically, a house down the street from 1423 sold, as you can see, for 121. It looks almost exactly the same. 121 on July 18th, 2019, so a year ago. And for some reason, magically, they're giving this as estimate of 127. So go figure why ours is, they're only claiming is worth 120 and change, and this one's worth 127. It's the exact same house. Now, admittedly, this is fixed up, but my point is that's what ARV is for. It's if you fixed it up. So if you look at this house, they did a pretty decent job on the rehab. I'm not going to penalize them for that, but it's safe to assume that ours could be worth the same amount if we did that kind of work to it. But that's what Zillow has to say, and I believe we could easily maintain 120,000 ARV without any much of a arm twisting. And I think 125 and possibly even higher is conceivable, but we're right now just resting on our laurels with 120. Okay, this is the rentometer page for 1423 North Hicks Circle in Conyers, Georgia. We have a Rentometer Pro account, so we can see some of the additional data. You notice that I've got it set for 3 months back and a 2-mile radius. I'm looking at all building types, apartments, condos, houses, etc. And when I analyze the address, I'd already done it, but I'll do it again. I'm getting 1197 as the average and the median, and that's because there's only 2 data points. So it's not a whole lot of data, but the data that's there suggests not 1075 like I've got in the spreadsheet, not even 1100 like I've been talking about, but nearly 1200. And this is just straight rent. So again, I think my numbers are extremely conservative, and frankly, given this, I'd probably try to test 1250 if I were doing this as a lease purchase, and certainly about 1200 as a straight rental. So again, if I put those numbers in the spreadsheet, people's heads would explode. So that's why I'm trying to be conservative here. But I think it's safe to say if you look at the trends for rents, they're going up. I recognize that we're in the middle of COVID-19, things could change, but I really don't see rents dive bombing right now. I think because there's a shortage of rental housing, I think rents are going to at least maintain where they are, if not go up. But 1197 is a good deal more than what I was proposing in the spreadsheet. And in just a map so you can see what we're talking about. This is our target home. These are the 2 homes that they found. Well, one's a house, as you can see, one's an apartment. The house is getting $1350. And yes, it's a 3-2, but I'm assuming that's 2 full bathrooms. But again, if they got $1350, we could probably get $1250 as a straight rental, is my thinking, and maybe $1300 as a lease purchase. But all people can agree that 1075 is extremely conservative. Even the apartment's getting 1043, and that's just an apartment. So, and these are recent. These are April and March of this year. So I think this easily supports my position that 1075 rent is ridiculously conservative, and the numbers are even better than what I'm proposing. And that's the deal with the rent. So if you've seen enough and you're ready to take positive steps towards grabbing this house for yourself, you'll just need to give me a call, because your next step is likely going to be to take a look at the inside of this property. My number here is 678-532-8870. Just give me a call and I'll be happy to schedule a walkthrough inspection for you. And I will give you the heads up that we generally require, if we have not done business with you before, that you submit proof of funds to us. You can email them to us at documents@home-pride.com. And once we have that on file, we can schedule your walkthrough. If the property is occupied, we can arrange for you to see it in a guided manner. And if the property is vacant, we can typically arrange for you to see it on your own. And we look forward to working with you and helping you buy this great home.